Well, there's no escaping this. I'm gonna disappoint one side of this issue with my opinion, so let's do this quickly.
You disappoint me.
We live in a very divided time. We have Republicans and Democrats, nationalists and globalists, pro-lifers and pro-choicers, people who like pineapple on pizza and people who don't like pineapple on pizza, and of course, the divisive issue related to this video, those who prefer The Godfather and those who prefer The Godfather Part II. So, which side of the fence do I sit on? Well, I think The Godfather Part II is an unbelievably incredible film. Easily one of the greatest films ever made, and certainly one of the greatest Best Picture winners. It's hard to describe with words how wonderful this film is. And yet... I'm a Godfather 1 guy. I kinda feel like I'm being blasphemous when I say this. I feel guilty putting any film above The Godfather Part 2, let alone the OG Godfather, but if I'm truly being honest with myself, despite the tremendous quality of this film, despite it doing some things even better than the original, which I'll touch on, as a package deal, it's slightly inferior. The Godfather Part II was also directed by Francis Ford Coppola, and it stars all the surviving characters from the first film with a few new ones added on top. It also follows Michael Corleone, now the Don of the family, as he attempts to extend his empire throughout the United States and beyond. Not only that, the film, through consistent and expansive flashbacks, also gives us the origin story of Michael's late father Vito. This time, the screen legend Marlon Brando is replaced by yet another immortal screen legend, Robert De Niro, in one of his earliest film roles. As a result of his terrific performance, he was awarded the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. Al Pacino, on the other hand, did not win an Oscar for Best Actor. You know who did? Art Carney for his role in Harry and Tonto. This is widely considered as one of the greatest snubs in Oscar history, and I agree completely. But The Godfather Part II was undoubtedly the big winner of the night, racking up the awards for Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Original Score, and Best Art Direction as well. Much like its predecessor, The Godfather Part II is a film that I can talk about for literal hours, but I'll try to keep it brief. It's intriguing watching how the dynamics between the characters had changed since the first film. Some characters passed away between movies, like Clemenza, and minor characters like Connie become more prominent. The main beneficiary of this film in relation to the first is, of course, Michael's older brother, Fredo, who receives a much bigger and more meaningful role here. His character is more fleshed out, and we really get to feel for him. I personally related to him on a very deep level. He wants to be like his father, he wants to be a big brother to Michael. He just wants to be respected and needed. But his shortcomings and weaknesses hold him back, and his tragic story is one of the emotional highlights, or should I say lowlights, of the film. Other than the old characters, we get a bunch of additions to the cast which are all great and on par with what we already had. Senator Pat Geary is an asshole and a coward, Frank Pentangeli is eccentric and mysterious, and Hyman Roth seems like your usual friendly grandpa, but he has a much more sinister side to him that he keeps hidden. And of course, to cap Michael's story off is Michael himself, who's a wonderful character, and Al Pacino carries his half of the film with ease. We go along with him on his adventures in Cuba as he tries to find the one who betrayed him, all the while his marriage with Kay disintegrates under gut-wrenching circumstances. So, as you can probably see, I love Michael's story. It's emotional, dramatic, and very well executed. But with everything good I said about Michael's story, the best thing about this film by a country mile is Vito's story. The flashbacks of Vito's origin story are incredible. The opening scene sees Vito escape Sicily as his entire family is killed. It's utterly harrowing, but when he reaches the States, the soaring music combined with the shot of the Statue of Liberty, it's mesmerizing and very cinematic. Robert De Niro is excellent. He mimics Brando's mannerisms to a T. I love how they recreated the time period and the aesthetic. I love seeing Vito's gradual ascent. I love seeing him interact with the characters. I love seeing baby versions of his children. I love absolutely everything about this aspect of the film. It's so well done. I know I'm gonna get flack when I say this, but if the entire film was only the flashbacks, only Vito's story, if it was just a straight-up prequel, then it would be right alongside the original Godfather for me in terms of quality, and perhaps even surpass it. Which leads me to the biggest detriment of the film for me. Vito's story is just better than Michael's story. I'm sorry. Michael's story is great, don't get me wrong, but with all the positives, it's not as flawless as the original or the flashbacks. Something feels missing. It's slower and a bit harder to sit through. It's still amazing, but when you set the bar so high, the smallest negatives are way more noticeable. In my opinion, this results in a rather uneven viewing experience, where one half of the film is just better than the other half. I realize this may just be me here, but at certain instances during Michael's story, I found myself wanting to get back to Vito's story. That's the reason I prefer the first Godfather, because that movie flowed between scenes seamlessly and the quality never wavered. In the sequel, especially Michael's story, there are just a few rare instances where the movie drags just a little bit. But if that's the biggest flaw a film has, then that film is in pretty good shape, to say the least. The Godfather Part II is yet another incredible Best Picture winner, one of the greatest of all time. Oh, I guess I should mention one more thing. 1974 had one of the highest quality batches of Best Picture nominees in history. Aside from The Godfather Part II, the two other heavy hitters were The Conversation, which was also directed by Francis Ford Coppola, wow, and Chinatown, a freaking masterpiece directed by Roman Polanski. And once again, I know I'm gonna piss off even more people when I say this, but my personal pick for Best Picture for that year is Chinatown. But that's just because I freaking love Chinatown, okay? It's like in my top 20 of all time. But forget about that. The Godfather Part II is still phenomenal. How phenomenal? Well, it's one of the best, and it will stay near the top of the list by the end as well. I have a hunch. I told you the 70s were the best decade in Oscar history, and it's gonna keep on delivering from here, let me tell you. Up next is the 48th Best Picture winner, and it's another highlight, mostly because it has one of the single greatest performances in film history, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Check back again for the next video of DB Reviews Oscar Madness Marathon, and subscribe to my channel so you won't miss a thing. Thank you all very much, and let the journey continue.